Welcome to this week's Q&A. It's going to be a follow-on from a previous question that we had and a comment made by one of our viewers in Brisbane in relation to that on LinkedIn. So it follows on from a probably slightly more complex situation where I was discussing a potential windfall that could present itself during the course of 2024 for Australian expats around the world who are looking to potentially buy their future home or an investment property in Australia. And just a couple of assumptions we're making is that these expats are obviously working in different countries and earning their incomes in a different currency to the Australian dollar. Now, it's important to recognise that there are quite a few sort of macro factors involved here that we should actually think about, as it's not all about quantitative analysis, as it were, and especially with housing, because we know it's not just an asset; it's a consumption asset that we need to live somewhere, and this provides us that shelter. But look, if people are looking to buy a future home in Australia, and let's say they're working in the US and they're getting paid in US dollars or an investment property, there are certain things that perhaps this year could give them some really good tailwinds in terms of a future outcome. So let's say you're buying a property, currently interest rates in Australia are considered to be high. I think they're at the peak of the cycle, and there's obviously a bit of dampening impact upon consumer spending, consumer behaviour, and people are saying, well, look, I can't really afford to spend as much as I want to on buying that future home or investment property, because for many reasons, but one of the biggest ones is the bank won't lend it to me. So we've got to bear that in mind, and that's impacting consumer behaviour. But let's say that later in the year, as is widely mooted in financial markets, central banks around the world are going to start easing their official cash rates, and they're probably going to do that at different times and at perhaps different rates of decrease depending on the economic situation in that country. So let's imagine that these people in the US are there, and the US starts cutting rates earlier and more aggressively than the Reserve Bank of Australia, which is something that obviously could be a likely outcome, since the Fed raised rates more quickly and to a greater extent than the RBA. So let's say that starts happening and the Reserve Bank is still on hold in terms of reducing its rates. There's going to be an FX component to that, so the US dollar would likely weaken against the A dollar and other currencies. But also from a sentiment viewpoint, we've got people in Australia still potentially not being able to borrow as much money as they can, but these people from overseas could potentially get a benefit from earning their incomes elsewhere and not being stuck in the same rut. So if you're buying something, perhaps in the first half of this year, and you're going to do so anyway, all I'm saying is that you may actually get that benefit when the currency exchange starts to hit, because your A dollar value asset, the property that you're buying, will likely increase from an increase in foreign exchange. But also, I think then there may be a pickup due to consumer demand and consumer sentiment later in the year as rates do start to come down and people are feeling more comfortable with being able to meet the actual repayments that they're going to have to make on that mortgage or investment loan. And so that may then provide some further, if you like, stimulus for the housing markets around the country in Australia. And obviously some will react differently to others, as we always point out to our viewers, so important to get that research right, and we'll cover off a lot more on that on our upcoming quarterly review. But there's a lot moving parts there, and I think people need to start recognising those, because it might really help them when they're seeking to make some well-informed decisions in the near future. So look, if you found that of interest, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel and click like. And if you have some questions about your own situation, please don't hesitate to reach out, email us or call us, and we'll have somebody come back to you and see if we can't assist you with your own personal situation. I'm Andrew Unterweger, and I'll see you at next week's Q&A.